You're listening to The Head Trash Show with the founder of Head Trash, Alexia Leachman. Head Trash is the home to the new and unique Head Trash clearance method that removes unwanted negative thoughts, feelings and emotions quickly and effectively so that you can achieve clarity, confidence and contentment in your life. Tune in every week as Alexia shares insights and simple strategies to help you create some headspace to experience confidence and clarity in your life and business. To find out how to clear your head trash quickly and effectively using our unique method, pop over to www.headtrash.co.uk to get our free download and subscribe for our free head trash clearance updates. And now for the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Head Trash Show. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now, on today's show, we're going to be talking about letting go. And the reason I want to talk about letting go is because it's really come from a very personal place this week. And it's very much been the theme of my own life for the last few weeks, maybe 2 weeks, or probably even longer than that, maybe reaching out as far as 6 weeks, actually. And it's down to having little kids who have been ill. And so both of my little kids, I've got an 8-month-old and I've got a 4-year-old, and they've basically been taking turns in having chicken pox, growth spurts, whatever cold, temperatures, spots, whatever you want to call it. And they've been taking turns not sleeping or going to nursery. So because of all that, I've basically I've had them at home with me, which has meant I've done pretty much not a lot of work, zero work in fact, for some weeks. And it's just been incredibly frustrating having to let go of being able to do work. And then last week, just as I shipped the little one back to nursery, my websites went down. 2 of my websites went down. So not only did I have this crazy backlog that I had to deal with, but I suddenly had all this unplanned urgent work that needed doing yesterday to get the website sorted. And it is all getting a little bit frantic, I have to say. And I don't know if you know, but I do have another podcast, the Fearfree childbirth podcast. And that one goes out on a Thursday and this one goes out on a Friday. And so last week, I was facing the real prospect of not being able to get either of those podcasts out the door. And I was just really feeling it, really under this pressure that is all mine, I admit. Thankfully, I managed to get the Fearfree childbirth podcast out the door just in time, I think, in the last few hours of Thursday. So it just about hit iTunes on the right day. But unfortunately, this podcast didn't quite make it. And so I had to add another thing to my letting go pile. The Head Trash Show podcast. I was like, this is unbelievable. And I was wrestling with it. I was really, really struggling with all of this. And so it was pretty hard, I have to say. And for me, I think this kind of having to be a mother like that for such a long period of time, and it makes that a bit harsh coming from a mother, but I like getting stuff done. I'm not a stay-at-home mum. And I've been on maternity leave not long ago, so I've had that kind of sitting around cuddling babies thing. And I was really pleased to get back to my work when finally we got her into nursery. So to suddenly be thrust back into that kind of mothering zone of playing with jigsaws and Lego or just holding a crying baby all day I just had enough. I was like, no, I want to get back to work. So yeah, it's been pretty hard. Because, when you've got your own business that needs attention, it needs drive, it needs energy, you've got to be on it, you can't just stop because the business just stops. And so when you've got your own business, you just need to keep pushing with it, especially when you're trying to crank it back into action after taking extended maternity leave. So, I was really, really struggling with this, let me tell you, and finding it hugely, hugely stressful. But when your kids are ill, they've got to come first. And I just had to let it go. I had to let go of all my expectations, let go of my need to work hard, let go of my need to be actually doing work, of being productive and all that stuff. And, I can't help but thinking at times like this, I was observing myself, watching this sort of pattern emerging in my life where I was, being forced to let go week after week after week. And I was like, and then something else would come and then this other thing would come. And it's like, maybe there's a lesson here that I need to learn. Maybe the universe is throwing this stuff at me because I'm just not learning the lesson. And the lesson probably needs to be, slow down and let go. And I need to trust a bit more that things are going to be okay. But anyway, that's all my stuff, right? So all this stuff, as I was sitting there playing Lego, playing jigsaws, holding a crying baby, it was just getting me thinking, this is how letting go was showing up for me in my life, or at least the instructions from the divine universe saying, hey, Lex, you just got to let go a bit and chill out, And so, but actually it can show up in lots of other ways. And it was a conversation I was having in the kitchen with my other half, sort of as I was sharing my kind of, I wouldn't call it an epiphany moment because I've had bigger epiphanies than that, but that sort of realisation that I really do need to maybe let things go. And he couldn't quite understand, so I was sort of illustrating to him other ways that letting go can really show up for you. And that's got me thinking. I thought, hey, this will make a great podcast episode, because he didn't fully understand what I meant by this letting go thing. So as I was explaining to him, I realised it's not necessarily apparent for everybody how the need to let go can show up for you, or how do you know that you need to let go in your life? So I thought I'd just share some of the ideas I was explaining to him with you. So do you recognise any of these patterns in your life that you need to let go of? Okay, first one. Do you find yourself replaying conversations in your head? And I know that we often find ourselves doing this when the conversation didn't quite go as we would have liked. So, we play these reruns and then we insert our clever comments or those clever comebacks that we didn't quite think of first time round. Does that sound like something that you do? Well, this is a classic. I know I do this. I know, hands up, I've got a big letting go lesson to learn here. But this is a classic. And you know what you've got to do? You've got to let it go. Or how about this? Do you have exercise plans for the week that you just struggle to maintain? Hands up. My hand's up already. My hand's up. And then do you beat yourself up for not doing it? This came up when I was talking to my other half, because he aims to go running about 3 times a week. But life just gets in the way, because it does, right? Especially when you've got 2 kids. It kind of just goes a bit crazy. But the thing is, when he can't do his 3 runs, he just beats himself up about it. And even when he's ill, he beats himself up. And you know what he's got to do? He's just got to let it go, right? Or how about this? Do you easily get wound up by other drivers and then try and get them back? So again, I've got to put my hands up here. Maybe someone's cut you up, or they've raced you off from the lights, or maybe, that kind of thing. And then do you find yourself maybe trying to race them back, beat them to the next lights, or cut them up, overtake them and then sneak them back in and get in front of them and later on, And if you're still trying to do this 15 minutes later, then guess what? You need to let it go, okay? Now, how about this one? Do you find yourself berating yourself over little accidents? So this is just small things, like maybe you've broken something at home, maybe it's a precious item, or maybe you've just broken your favourite mug or something like that in the kitchen. But it's just a mug, right? It is just a mug. And then do you spend the next hour just kind of beating yourself up over the mug? Oh, I really like that mug. Oh my goodness. And, you kind of... You know what you got to do now? You've just got to let go of the damn mug, okay? Let go. Just let go of this stuff. Move on. And so with all these situations, the mental tennis that goes on after the event is just, it's just not helpful, is it? Because just think what you could be doing with that mental power that you're wasting on all this sort of toing and froing and hitting yourself over the head with stuff. It's just not helpful. Whatever has happened and can't be changed. So the quicker you're able to accept the situation without judgment, the better. Let me just say that again, because that sentence is actually quite important. The quicker you're able to accept the situation without judgment, it's that judgment bit as well that's really important, the better. So how can you do this? How can you let it go? Well, for those of you that follow this podcast regularly, you know what's coming, right? You know what's coming. What I'm going to share with you now is the things that you need to clear using our 5-step head trash clearance method. So if you haven't got your copy of the 5-step head trash clearance method, then get it right away. You can get it from the homepage on the headtrash.co.uk website, or you can see it within the podcast show notes for today's podcast. And there's a little bit on the right-hand side of the blog post where you can see the podcast, but I'll also have a link within the show notes. So you really have got no excuse if you want to get hold of the 5-step head trash clearance method. And you will be able to let things go much more easily once you do what I'm about to share with you. So once you've got that, this is what you need to do. You need to add these 3 things to your head trash clearance to-do list. If you don't know what a head trash clearance to-do list, again, check out the podcast episode of that name, why you need to have a head trash clearance to-do list. Again, I'll have a link in the podcast show notes. But you need to add these 3 things to your list. Letting go, funnily enough, that's the big theme of the podcast. Add letting go to your list. And then the other 2 that are part of that sentence that I repeated. Acceptance or being accepting is another item on your list. And then judging or being judgmental. So just add those 3 things to your head trash clearance to-do list and clear them using the 5-step head trash clearance method. Now, of course, what you mustn't forget to do is also to clear the opposite for each of these. And if you're not sure what I mean by clearing the opposite, then I've got an FAQ podcast that explains that too. And again, the link for that is in the podcast show notes. So I hope today has been useful. It's not as long as it normally is, today's episode, but it's a really, really important one, and sometimes you don't need to be talking for hours to explain something so super simple that can have a massive, massive impact in your life. So if you've got areas of your life where you need to just let it go, then try doing this and see how you get on. I guarantee you are going to notice a difference. You are going to notice a difference in your ability to let things go. You really, really are. Because one thing that I found myself doing when I was wrestling with all this crap that I was dealing with in that 6-week period where I really wasn't getting much done, is I was doing a lot of reflective repatterning. That's the technique that is the core of the 5-step method. And I did do letting go on myself. And it was amazing how I was able to I did just surrender to it, and I really ended up enjoying that time with my little girls once I kind of realised that I had to let it go, and I was able to be a lot more present and not so... I basically wasn't beating myself up with this great big stick. I just thought, sod it. It's going to be all right. I'm sure people aren't going to fall off a cliff if they don't get my podcast for 1 week. We all have stuff happening in our lives. So I hope that you did cope okay without a podcast last week. I'm sure you're all fine. And I hope that I won't have to drop a podcast episode like that again. But you know what? If it happens, it happens. I've let it go now. So, if I do miss a few, then I don't care. Anyway, I hope today's been useful. See you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in. You've just been listening to Alexia Leachman here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show, she'd really appreciate you leaving a review on iTunes. And don't forget to pop over to www.headtrash.co.uk to get your copy of the free 5 Steps to Clearing Head Trash guide. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes for more strategies, tips and how-tos for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time.